What's happening, everybody? On today's show, we got two new coaches in the SEC, Mike Elko at A&M, Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State. But how close was Mark Stoops to leaving Kentucky for A&M? Also, we'll have some SEC guys already in the transfer portal, particularly quarterbacks, and some key weekend takeaways, including an epic finish in the Iron Bowl as Bama celebrates and Auburn heartaches. The Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Today's episode is presented to you by friends over at the Game Time app. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. All right, before we get into weekend takeaways, transfer portal, all that, we got to discuss the big news. We got some new coaches in the SEC. We did a special episode on Saturday night for those of you who watched it, and the news was Mark Stoops was leaving Kentucky to go to Texas A&M. A lot has changed since then. We end up finding out that, well, let's just dive into it as we do with some of the big topics. We've got two new coaches in the SEC. Mike Elko is set to be the new head coach at Texas A&M, while Mississippi State is hiring Jeff Lebby. But it was a journey over the weekend to get here. Mike Elko reportedly returning to College Station, as multiple reports have stated the Duke head coach will indeed take the same position with Texas A&M. Now, these are coming from tons of different sources as opposed to Saturday night, where there was a couple of sources reporting that Mark Stoops was leaving Kentucky. But Mike Elko, he was Jimbo Fisher's defensive coordinator from 2018 to 2021. When he was hired by Duke, took over the reins there. But A&M ended that 2020 COVID season a top 4 team, went to the Orange Bowl where they won, and they just never took that next step under Jimbo Fisher. Missed a bowl game last year, finished 5-7. They were kind of always, 7-5, 8-4, that kind of thing. But Mike Elko went to Duke, took over for David Cutcliffe there, and did very well there. They were 9-4 in 2022. That was their most wins since 2014. Went 7-5 this season, and now he'll head to Texas A&M to try to turn them around. Some people tweeting out, it's a home run hire, great hire for A&M. I saw one tweet that said that the high school coaches in the state of Texas love Mike Elko. During his final season with Texas A&M in 2021, he was named a semifinalist for the Broyles Award. Texas A&M's defense allowed more than 30 points just 9 times in his 4 seasons there with the Aggies. You consider, you're playing the SEC schedule. Of those 9 games where they give up 30 or more, 4 of those came against Alabama, who, of course, was national championship contender year in and year out. The Aggies won at least 8 games in each of Elko's 4 seasons running the defense, including that 9-1 record in 2020. A&M also won each of its bowl games while Mike Elko was DC there. Now, this all comes on the heels of the report that surfaced Saturday night that Mark Stoops was going to be taking the A&M job. Late in the Saturday night, early Sunday morning, reports came out that Mark Stoops was indeed going to stay at Kentucky. Mark Stoops even put out a statement at 1 a.m. Sunday morning saying, I know there's been a lot of speculation about me and my job situation. It's true. I was contacted about a potential opportunity, but after celebrating a big win against our rivals with players I love like family, I knew in my heart I couldn't leave the University of Kentucky right now. I'm excited to say I'm a Wildcat. Mark Stoops, of course, has had a great run here with Kentucky as they finished 7-5 this year, heading to a bowl game for another year. 8 consecutive seasons, school record, 8 consecutive seasons heading to a bowl game. Last time Kentucky enjoyed a stretch of at least 8 straight winning seasons, you got to go back to the 40s and 50s. Now, Matt Jones of Kentucky Sports Radio shared on Sunday that Mark Stoops was not given a raise or an incentive to remain head coach of the Wildcats. Stoops' current contract runs through 2031, where he makes $9 million a year. So the real conundrum here is who pulled the, did Mark Stoops say thanks but no thanks to the Aggies, or did he accept the Aggie position, was getting ready to head to College Station, and the Aggies pulled their offer? There were reports out there that, tons of negative social media from a lot of A&M people and A&M boosters who were very upset with the potential hire of Mark Stoops as their head coach, thinking, we can do better than this. Boy, we don't want Mark Stoops. We don't want the Kentucky coach. We didn't fire Jimbo Fisher to bring in the guy from Kentucky. Look, I said on social media, and I'll say it here, you can do a lot worse than Mark Stoops. I mean, the guy has done an incredible job there at Kentucky. You give him the NIL money at A&M and the ability to recruit all those 4 and 5 stars there. Always has hard-nosed defenses, good run game. Of course, Ray Davis was outstanding this year. Past guys like Chris Rodriguez and all these different backs that they've had. And, think about the quarterback. He went from having to play a wide receiver at quarterback a couple years ago and winning some games doing that to getting Will Levis to transfer in from Penn State to have 2 really good years, and then Devin Leary coming in from NC State. So, look, I think Stoops would have been a nice hire for A&M, and I think he could have won and perhaps won big there down the road. The question is, can Mike Elko do that? There was, some speculation there. Okay, good defensive mind, but to me, it's going to be incumbent who's going to be his OC. And there's been some reports out there that maybe Bobby Petrino will stay aboard, and I think that could lead to a recipe for success with the Jimbo Fisher handcuffs maybe he had on Bobby Petrino, let him have full control of the offense. Again, we'll see if that happens, but Mike Elko can build his staff. But very beloved there. I compared it to some people. Dave Aranda was at LSU. Of course, he was part of the national championship team, but very beloved there as the DC. There was some talk when they fired Coach O. Do you think maybe they could give Dave Aranda a look as a head coach before they ultimately ended on Brian Kelly? But, kind of that highly thought of in College Station. A lot of people love Mike Elko. Not many bad things to say about him. Everybody loved him. But we'll see how he does as the head guy now. Is he ready for, winning at Duke is one thing, but big boy football in the SEC with Oklahoma and Texas coming in, he faces a tough test here. We'll see if Mike Elko can do it. But, I tweeted out, I said, I think right now Mark Stoops is a better head coach than Mike Elko. Not saying that Elko's a bad hire. Again, he could be very good there for A&M. But, look no further than the Louisville game. Kentucky just upset number 10 Louisville in their house this past weekend. Mike Elko and Duke played Louisville earlier this season, got shut out 23-0. So, again, it's just one example, just using to my case to say I like Mark Stoops better as a head coach than Mike Elko, but time will tell. If you're an Aggie fan, be excited, and we'll see what he is able to do. One other head coaching hire made in the last 24 hours, Mississippi State hiring Oklahoma offensive coordinator Jeff Lebby as the Bulldogs' next head coach. He is regarded as one of the top offensive play callers in college football. Mississippi State tweeting out an offensive mastermind, a dynamic play caller, and the engineer of some of the most feared offenses in college football. Please welcome the 36th head football coach in Mississippi State program history, Jeff Lebby. Of course, he brings 2 decades of experience calling plays and being part of offenses throughout college football. It's the first defining hire of new athletic director Zach Selman's very young career. Jeff Lebby flew into Starkville on Sunday night and going to be introduced at a celebration Monday evening at 7:30 Central outside the football complex. Lebby's hiring ends a 2-week span of Mississippi State after they parted ways with Zach Arnett. They had a little bit of an exhaustive search. And, of course, this is a program still hurting from the passing of Mike Leach just a year ago. And Jeff Lebby comes over from Oklahoma, where he's been the offensive coordinator the last 2 seasons. The Sooners ended the season on Friday, finishing 10-2. They're number 13 in the last playoff rankings. But since becoming an offensive coordinator at the FBS level, Jeff Lebby has led all active offensive coordinators in 50-point-plus games. His unit at Oklahoma this year scored 65 points 3 times, and he sits at number 3 nationally in scoring offense at 43 points per game. He's very highly thought of. I mean, Zach Selman saying, I'm confident that Jeff is a perfect leader for the next exciting chapter of Mississippi State football. Of course, Jeff Lebby, no stranger to the SEC before joining Brent Venables' staff at Oklahoma. He spent 2 seasons at Oxford, helping run Ole Miss's offense and coaching their quarterbacks under Lane Kiffin. And Lebby's group led the SEC in total offense in 2021, also topped the conference in his first season at Oxford in 2020 at 555 yards per game. He tutored Matt Corral when he had that fantastic season in 2020, led the nation 384 yards of total offense per game, ranked 5th in passing yards per game. So, look, the timeline here is very big. Why is A&M and Mississippi State making these hires so quick? Oh my God, the season just ended. We got to make a hire. Well, the winter transfer portal opens next Monday and runs through January 2nd. Already a handful of Mississippi State guys announced that they're going to enter the transfer portal come December 4th. And also coming up is the early signing period in late December. So, you got to put together a signing class. You got to figure out who you want in the portal. You got to try to do damage control to build a roster, keeping guys on the from entering the portal. So it's going to be interesting, though. Mississippi State, they have a track record of hiring offensive-minded coaches, and now Jeff Lebby fills that gap. And, of course, Lane Kiffin had to take a little bit of a shot on social media, retweeting a tweet from Jeff Lebby years ago where he took a picture of his socks that said, "We run the SIP," and it was Ole Miss socks. Well, of course, Lane Kiffin taking a shot. And, look, that's going to be fun. I mean, the Egg Bowl amps up even more so with Jeff Lebby, good friends and associate of Lane Kiffin, now at Mississippi State, going to get head-to-head with Ole Miss. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, we got plenty more to get to here on Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. Coming up next, we've got some quarterbacks in the transfer portal. We got weekend takeaways. All that is coming your way here in just a sec on Locked On SEC. This episode is presented by our friends over at the Game Time app. Look, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to the next big sporting event. Game Time is the fast and easy way for you to buy tickets to all your favorite sporting events. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat. That's my favorite. And their best price guarantee. They're going to take all the guesswork out of buying tickets. They are obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time, they have deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. So if you're at a game, you're tailgating, you haven't bought tickets yet, might just watch the game at the tailgate, keep checking that Game Time app. Prices will fluctuate. Sometimes they'll go down after the game starts. You can get them right there on the Game Time app. And, of course, the Game Time guarantee means you will always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Go take the guesswork out of buying tickets to your next sporting event with Game Time. Go download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come on back tomorrow on the show. We'll be recapping more of the coaching hires, transfer portal news, and, of course, we'll be getting you set all week long, previewing the SEC championship game, Alabama versus Georgia, Kirby Smart versus Nick Saban. Doesn't get any better than that. All right, before we get to the weekend takeaways, we got a few orders of business. We got to get to transfer portal news, so let's jump into it. Let's go around the conference.
Boots out to the right. Takes the handoff. What a catch! Around the conference.
And we'll start with transfer portal news. Coming out in the portal yesterday, Texas A&M quarterback Max Johnson has entered the portal. He will enter as a graduate transfer after spending 2 seasons with the Aggies. He announced on social media to graduating from one of the greatest universities, earning my Aggie ring, symbolized the incredible traditions and memories, made it a true honor. I said thanks to the fans, the 12th man, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, Johnson spent the last 2 seasons at A&M before he started his career at LSU. He's the son of former Super Bowl winner Brad Johnson and very experienced. We will see Max has started a bunch of games. We'll see where he ends up. And because he's leaving Texas A&M as a graduate transfer, he is expected to be eligible for next season. Played in 8 games this year for the Aggies, completed 62% of his passes, threw for over 1,400 yards and 9 touchdowns. We told you guys last week after the Egg Bowl, Will Rogers and Mississippi State, one of the most seasoned passers in the SEC. He has entered the portal. So he's played 4 seasons there, started as a true freshman, played 4 seasons at Mississippi State. I believe he's number 2 in all-time career yardage in the SEC. We'll see where he ends up. So those are 2 big names in the portal. And then a third one added on Sunday. Vanderbilt quarterback Ken Seals announced he will enter the portal after 4 seasons with the Commodores. Seals will have 2 seasons of eligibility, of course, with the COVID extra year. He redshirted in 2022. He's had a good career at Vanderbilt. His best season came in 2020, where he had 12 touchdowns, 11 picks, completed 64% of his passes, split time with A.J. Swan, and then this year got in there and played a good bit because of injuries, but we'll see. Some reports saying he's likely to transfer out of the Power 5, maybe go to a group of 5 team and really kind of showcase his talents, but 3 very talented SEC experienced quarterbacks there on the move. Of course, like we said, Will Rogers, the headliner, but Max Johnson, very good, can definitely go help a team somewhere, and Ken Seals as well. So wish all 3 of those guys the best of luck. One other name, Florida tight end Jonathan Odom, announced Sunday he is entering the portal after 4 seasons at Gainesville. He will have 2 seasons of eligibility. Played as a reserve tight end for the Gators mostly. Has 2 touchdowns to his credit, 16 catches for 144 yards. So we'll look for Jonathan Odom where he is headed. All right, another order of business. The SEC's best chance at a Heisman this season, or really only chance at this point. It is LSU quarterback Jayden Daniels, who capped off his regular season on Saturday. And LSU and some folks over there going to bat for Jayden and pointing out the numbers, saying that it is this guy, and it's not even close. Of course, Michael Penix over at Washington and Bo Nix over at Oregon are the others. Marvin Harrison over at Ohio State. Carson Beck was kind of considered a little bit of a long shot. And look, if Carson Beck goes and throws for 5 or 6 touchdowns against Alabama and wins 56-10, well, maybe Carson Beck, gets an invite to New York and deserves to be in the running. But all that said, on Saturday, Cody Worsham, who works for LSU, he put out a tweet of basically a spreadsheet that's pointing out that Jayden Daniels has 3.5 times more rushing yards after contact than Michael Penix and Bo Nix have total rushing yards combined. He said Daniels has forced 47 missed tackles as a runner. Nix has forced 2, Penix 1. Daniels is going to have to overcome, of course, the 9-3 record that LSU has this year. But, the Heisman isn't about your record. I mean, there have been plenty of Heisman winners with multiple losses on the season, but Daniels right up there with Penix and Nix in passing yardage, 3,800, but almost 5,000 total yards. He has 900 more than Nix and more than 1,000 more than Penix. So we will see. But in 30 offensive categories, Cody Worsham noting that Jayden Daniels leads Bo Nix and Michael Penix in 25 of those 30 offensive categories, including passer rating, completion percentage on throws more than 20 yards down the field, and yards per play. Pretty damn impressive. LSU, by the way, they came back to beat Texas A&M 42-30 in Tiger Stadium on Saturday, outscoring the Aggies in the fourth quarter 21-6. Daniels passed for 4 touchdowns, accounted for 355 yards of the offense. Brian Kelly saying after the game, first of all, Texas A&M is a top 10 defense in the country. That defensive line is outstanding. You throw for 4 touchdowns against that defense and put up 42 points. Obviously, running the way he did, I just think he strengthened his case for the Heisman. LSU wide receiver Malik Neighbors, he caught 6 passes for 122 yards, became LSU's career record holder in receptions with 186, passing Wendell Davis. And he's 21 receiving yards short of Josh Reed's LSU record. Neighbors saying after the game, I'm still going to break that one. So basically saying he's projected as a first-round pick right now, but sounds like he's going to play in LSU's bowl game. So that will be interesting to see. But look, Aggies gave it their best effort under Elijah Robinson, the interim coach. Jalen Henderson threw for almost 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Big question for LSU is Matt House going to be back as their DC? Because LSU's defense was god-awful this season. With the offense they had with Jayden Daniels, the defense was atrocious. So we expect maybe a change there this offseason for LSU on the defensive side of the ball. And one more note on LSU. Brian Kelly asked after the game about his future. There were some rumblings that maybe, if the Michigan job were to open up or something like that. Brian Kelly said, look, I want to be at LSU. I'm not going anywhere. This is my last stop on the Coach Kelly caravan. He said, I don't have to say anything that puts me in a corner, but this is it. This is where I'm going to be. This is where I want to coach. I love it here. I love the people, love the state, Scott Woodward and others. So Brian Kelly basically telling you, I'm never going to coach anywhere else. Going to coach at LSU. We'll see how long this goes. Maybe it goes another decade, but this will be his last stop, according to Brian Kelly. All right, let's get to some other weekend takeaways from the weekend that was in the SEC. Just gave you LSU A&M there. Of course, going into the weekend, we had Ole Miss winning the Egg Bowl, getting to 10 wins for the second time in 3 years under Lane Kiffin. On Friday, we had Mizzou crushing Arkansas 48-14 as Eli Drinkwitz improved to 10-2 at Mizzou this season. Sam Pittman's Arkansas Razorbacks dropped to 4-8, though he's been reassured he is coming back next season. So on Saturday, we had some really good games. 6 of the 7 games were all close in the second half, with the exception of Tennessee, who blew out Vandy 48-24. But let's get into the Kentucky game because Ray Davis looked really good in that one. But Kentucky knocked off number 10 Louisville in their house, 38-31. The Wildcats were trailing going into the fourth quarter, but outscored Louisville 17-7 in the fourth to get the win. It was a historic day for Kentucky. The win on Saturday was the first road win against a top team in the AP poll era since 1977 against Penn State. So big win there for Kentucky. The win Saturday was Kentucky's 5th straight win in the rivalry. That's the longest since the rivalry was renewed back in 1994. And with the victory, Kentucky moved to 7-5. This will be the school record 8th consecutive bowl game for the Cats. Of course, Louisville going on to play Florida State in the ACC championship game. Over at Tennessee, the Vols beat Vanderbilt 48-24 to finish the season 8-4 overall. Joe Milton talking after the game about his journey that he's been on, getting his first chance as a full-time starter after Hendon Hooker left last year. Joe Milton, 2,400 yards, 16 touchdowns, closed out the regular season with almost 400 yards passing and 6 total touchdowns. We'll see if Joe Milton plays in Tennessee's bowl game. He's had quite a ride. After the game, he said, my journey's been shaky. 3 years at Michigan, COVID, got a chance, but was hurt, then came here. I thank everybody for picking me up, having my back, and helping me smile. And lastly, Vandy losing in this one. Clark Lee was not feeling good after his team got thumped 48-24. They dropped to 2-10 on the season. Clark Lee called the season painful and frustrating. He said, this will be a year of learning for me. I'm upset. Obviously, I believe in what we're doing, and I know that we're going to reflect back on this moment from success. But the Commodores will miss a bowl for the 5th straight season. Clark Lee has 9 wins total in 3 seasons in Nashville. And one more note for you over at Florida. The Gators, they had a 12-0 early lead over Florida State in the Swamp Saturday night before going on to lose 24-15. They fall to 5-7 on the season, missed bowl eligibility. Billy Napier saying after the game, we just haven't been able to finish. It's the bottom line. I think we're learning how to do that, but we got work to do. Ultimately, as a staff, we have to evaluate from the top to the bottom every inch of what we do. We have to get up off the ground. We have to learn from failure. Some people wondering, Billy Napier, should Florida cut the cord, part ways? He's got a great recruiting class coming in next year. Sounds like they're going to stand by him, and he will get another year to show what he can do. All right, still more to come on Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. We're talking Iron Bowl in just a sec. And this episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL is offering stay hot deals up at FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That is $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options on there. Of course, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And all the college action throughout this college season up there as well at FanDuel. All those lines we gave you throughout the season, that was all from our friends at FanDuel. And those lines move throughout the week. So you can get better value either earlier in the week, or if the line's moving more in your favor later in the week, whatever it is, you always want to be going back to FanDuel to check it out. So go visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the rest of the NFL season and, of course, bowl season in the college ranks. FanDuel, they are the official partner of the NFL. Again, that's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Go get started today. All right, roll along here, Locked On SEC. And man, we gotta dive back into it because we had the most epic finish on Saturday. It came in the always entertaining Iron Bowl from Jordan-Hare Stadium as Isaiah Bond just ripped the hearts out of Auburn fans in the final seconds on a 4th and goal from the 31. As Jalen Milroe stood in the pocket where for what seemed like an eternity. Auburn, quote-unquote, rushed 3, but they didn't really rush. They just kind of stood around and looked at Jalen Milroe. But he found Isaiah Bond, launched the ball to the back left end zone, and Bond came down with it and kept Alabama's playoff hopes alive, winning 27-24. And now the Iron Bowl, which has had the famous kick 6 and all these great moments, the cam back, and now 4th and 31 will be one that is etched into the lore of the Iron Bowl. Jalen Milroe saying after the game, "I'll never forget this game ever in my life." Neither will Auburn fans, as that is about as heartache as you can get. Our buddy Zach Blackerby over at Locked On Auburn, I know, was not happy after this one. But Nick Saban, after the game, was asked about if it's a little luck on his side. He said, believe it or not, we actually practice that play. He said every Friday when we do walkthrough, we do special situations, we get in that formation. Everybody runs down the field, runs varying routes in the end zone. Jalen made a great throw, but Isaiah Bond really kind of got himself in a position where there was some room to throw it. He pushed inside. The DP was inside of him. He came back. Jalen threw it out to him. Saban said it also takes a little bit of luck for that to work out. He said it was a great catch, great throw, but that's a play we actually work on. I must admit that I think you have to be a little lucky for that to work, but I will take it. It's amazing. You know, he was so close to even maybe stepping out, but he got both feet down, just tipped them into the end zone, and unbelievable win for Alabama and the shocked fans at Jordan-Hare Stadium. I mean, just a heartbreaking loss for Auburn. You felt like you'd beat them. Honestly, a few moments before that, a muffed punt where Coy Moore was out there, and it's very, very disappointing. With 2 field goals and 3 extra points, Alabama's fifth-year kicker Will Reichert, he tied former Navy QB Keenan Reynolds as the NCAA's all-time leading scorer with 530 points. He missed a 42-yard field goal attempt in the third quarter. That would have put him over the mark. But after the loss, Hugh Freeze being asked about who was on the field during that crucial moment where they muffed the punt. We mentioned Coy Moore was in as the returner, but Freeze didn't know that Moore was in. He said he thought that he shouldn't have been. Keontae Scott was the return man for Auburn throughout the game, and that was who Freeze thought was on the field. He said Scott must have taken himself out for that play, but the muff punt was costly. Gave Alabama the ball back and a chance for the win. Hugh Freeze saying after the game, we didn't play good enough in critical moments. Really came down to a few plays in a game like this. There's a lot of hurt in that locker room, and it stinks. As far as the defensive setup on that game-winning play, Freeze said, I like the call. I just think we got to sit back there with vision and try to knock the ball down. Freeze said he did think that Bond maybe pushed off a little bit, but he said couldn't tell. Don't think any coach has the words after a loss like this. You tell the players you love them, and they'll get through it. But Hugh Freeze, look, it's been a nice season year one for Auburn, but certainly could have been a special year one if they were able to knock off Alabama in this one. But albeit Alabama's playoff hopes stay alive. And all they got to do is upset Georgia this weekend, and they will be in the thick of the college football playoff race once again. Speaking of Georgia, they had to tough out a battle with Georgia Tech, winning 31-23 as the Yellow Jackets scored 10 points in the fourth quarter to make this one interesting. But Georgia ultimately prevails and makes SEC history with the Bulldogs win over Georgia Tech. They have now won 29 games straight, breaking the record for the longest win streak in SEC history. A previous record was held by 2 different Alabama teams. Gene Stallings won 28 games from 91 to 93. And, of course, Bear Bryant won 28 straight from 78 to 1980. Now, Kirby Smart and Georgia hold the longest win streak at 29. The Bulldogs have not lost since that 2021 SEC title game against Alabama. And, of course, their 29 straight wins. Georgia's won 2 SEC championships, 2 national championships, along with a handful of college football playoff games. But the Bulldogs also notched some impressive regular season wins along the way, like their win over number 1 Tennessee a year ago, a top 10 Ole Miss team this season, and now Georgia will look to make it 30 straight as they face off against Alabama in Atlanta this weekend. Kirby Smart, after the game, was asked about Brock Bowers not playing. They showed him on the sideline several times. He did not see action against Georgia Tech. Smart said he decided not to play Brock because he was a little sore more this week than he had been. Bowers wanted to play, but wasn't quite able to. So we will see. I expect Brock Bowers to play this week in the SEC title game. And lastly, South Carolina, they just couldn't do enough on offense against number 24 Clemson as they fell 16-7 in Columbia. But the Gamecock defense, look, they did everything they could to keep them in this one. Spencer Rattler, after the game, announced his support for Shane Beamer as they fell to 5-7. Some Gamecock fans getting a little chirpy on Shane Beamer, growing frustrated, missing a bowl game this season. The schedule was brutal, but Spencer Rattler saying it after the game, I believed in what he was doing. I still do. Coach Beamer is the man for the job. He leads that locker room like nobody I've seen before. We will see if Spencer Rattler decides to come back for another year. Probably unlikely, but he has the option if he wants to come back. According to one NFL draft analyst reported CBS Sports, they project Rattler as maybe a middle round pick. We'll see what he does at the combine and that sort of thing if he decides to go pro. But on the table, if he wants to come back for another year in Columbia for the Gamecocks. And there you have it. This is the latest going on around the conference. We've had so much going on, particularly headlined by 2 new head coaches in the SEC. But we'll continue to keep you guys up to date on everything throughout this week. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come on back tomorrow. We'll have more news and notes going on around the SEC. Transfer portal, coaching news, all of it. We'll have it for you. And again, make us your first listen each and every day. For your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today, here for you, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So for your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.